I was drinking with a bunch of guys the night before, and somebody started talking about skydiving, and I said, I never knew you jumped, and he said, I didn't. And so I said, why not? I said, the way you talk, you'd think you made a lot of jumps. And he said, I can't get anybody to go with me. Well, I'd had just enough. I said, I'll go with you. The next thing I know, it's February, it's freezing cold. He shows up at my door at about 8 o'clock in the morning with a ripped out page from the Yellow Pages saying, I found a place that's only about an hour and a half from here where we can go out and take a class early afternoon and jump at the end of the afternoon. I mean, I knew nothing about the sport or whatever. I thought that sounded like a little, fast to be able to do this or whatever. So we went out to Lakewood Sport Parachuting Center on February 11th, 1965, and thank God it was freezing cold, and the Norseman had no door on it, so the shaking I was able to blame on the cold. But it was something. But and they were very good as soon as I landed. And you're so thankful to be alive and whatever that you're just really excited. And the first thing they ask you is, "Would you like to do that again?" And then you say yes. And then they, about 5 minutes later, it starts. What did I just commit myself to? And I started loving it. I made 300 jumps in the first calendar year. Got all 4 USPA licenses. Became an instructor at Lakewood. Did that for a couple of years. Got into competition. Got barely good enough to qualify and go to the nationals. But then over the years, I think I competed in 9 nationals. I was able to compete in style, accuracy, 4-way, 8-way, 10-man speed. So all the disciplines. And got 7 medals, and I guess the biggest accomplishment was being a part of Mirror Image in 1977, and we won the World Championships down in Gatton, Australia. So that was pretty much, the jumping career. Had about 6 or 7 malfunctions out of 4,317 jumps, which wasn't bad back in those days. I would say that I made probably about 3,500 jumps on round canopies, and about the last 900 or whatever the balance would be to 4,317 on square parachutes. Only one bad accident, which was in 1969 at Lakehurst Naval Air Station. And we jumped there. The Navy invited us in every year, once a year, for sort of fun jumping and jumping some of their big airplanes. And I think we were going to try and put a 15-way together. Someone said, well, why don't you wear some smoke or something? So I took a smoke bomb bracket, put it on, and because I'm a lazy guy, I tied a piece of tape, or string rather, to the cotter pin and ran it up my leg and taped it to the above my knee so I could just, bend down a little bit and activate the smoke bomb. So I did that, and we went out and we broke off at about 3,500 feet. I don't remember how big we got the star. And when I went to pull my main ripcord, I couldn't pull it. It was meeting resistance. And I looked down, and there was the lanyard that I had tied to the smoke bomb, and it had, in the prop wash and going out, it went through the main handle. So I just really pulled as hard as I could, and all of a sudden, everything went loose. The other end of it had wrapped through the reserve ripcord handle, because I was wearing a belly chest-mounted reserve. So both the main and the reserve took off together and ended up in a double malfunction wrapped together, and I had about a third of a reserve out. And they say when I hit, most of the others were still at 1,500 feet. Estimate was anywhere between 40 and 60 miles an hour. And the fortunate part was 15 feet off the macadam runway and into a swamp, and it had poured rain the night before. And yes, I was taken to the hospital, and I practically drowned because the water started seeping in to this huge divot I'd made in the ground. And the only thing I can tell you is at 10 o'clock that night, I got out of the hospital and back to the hangar in time for the party, with one side of me just from my shoulder all the way to my foot, black and blue, because I broke every blood vessel on the side of it, but didn't break a bone, and no other injuries other than my left side of my body was a little gross for a while. So at any rate, and then I was 6 days later, I made my next jump. So that was sort of the jumping history. The highlight, I guess, was being on the World Championship team, Mirror Image, and the, I guess, low point would have been that jump at Lakehurst, but if you can walk away from a landing that hard, it probably wasn't that bad a jump. So at any rate, and so that's really the jumping side of it. I got very active in the administrative side of the sport. went out to Monterey, California, and worked as an assistant executive director for USPA, and then left that job and went with Timmy Saltonstall, and we opened Pope Valley Parachute Ranch. And our dream was to open a skydiving center, if you will, that had a bar, restaurant, motel, so had our own bar. So as skydivers, we wouldn't get thrown out of our own bar. So we'd have our own bar, our own restaurant, our own motels, swimming pool out back. But instead of, pattern after ski resorts or country clubs, but rather than golf or tennis out back, you could, fly airplanes upside down. You could skydive. You could come in there with a glider and get a tow. It was probably 5 of the most fun years of my life running Pope Valley Parachute Ranch. Was very much into competition, and again, jumped with Mirror Image, and we jumped there. Well, anyway, I'm back to the administrative side. And then, while all of this was going on, I ran for national director of USPA, got elected, and served the first 2-year term, and then the next 2-year term was elected. I think it was the second term, maybe it was the third term. Was elected president of USPA and served in that capacity for 4 years, and then did 2 more years as chairman of the board, which is kind of the up and out slot, because the president is the chief executive officer. And I would like to think that one of the biggest accomplishments that that the administration, to use a better word, had was the skydiving community was a little bit fractured between style and accuracy and relative workers, but in particularly the West Coast relative workers. Well, I'm an East Coast guy, moved out to California, opened Pope Valley Parachute Ranch in Northern California, and jumped on 10-man speed teams from there, went down to Elsinore, competed against all the best Southern California teams, and our team, North Star, held its own. And then we held our own competition at Pope Valley, and all the top teams from Southern California came up. And so the USPA all of a sudden seemed to be a little bit calmer. We put relative work into the national championships, starting with 4-way. Then we went to 10-man speed stars, and then 8-way. And now, of course, there's a gazillion events. But the relative workers were happy. They were in the nationals, and USPA executives, if you will, were skydiving on relative work teams. So now we were one, as opposed to being the bad guy on the other side of the fence. So my first jump was 1965. My last jump was my last jump at the World Championships in Gatton, Australia, 1977. And came down, and when I did it, I didn't know it was going to be my last jump, but I knew that I was getting ready where I was going to have to go back to the East Coast and go to work, I mean real work. And so all of a sudden, we had a very, very good jump. We knew we were very close with the Germans, but we thought the jump we had just done was good enough to win the championship. And so there I am, flying around over the beautiful Australian countryside with 7 of my best friends, everybody in red, white, and blue, and USA on the canopies, and hooting and hollering, and just saying, if we just won the World Championship with that jump, and these 7 guys, what kind of a jump am I ever going to make that's going to be more fun than this one? So I quietly went over and packed up my parachute and said to myself, I think that might just have been it. And of course, no time to get sad, because we had the party that night, and next day was the awards ceremony, and we had just eked out by a couple of points victory over the German team. So it was so I retired, and it was an absolutely wonderful career. And then Bill Otley had come up with this idea of building a museum. And so I was one of the first 4 board members. There were people that he asked to be on the board, and we really didn't do much of anything for about 20 years. And now all of a sudden, steam got picked up, and so staying on the museum board, I guess Lenny Potts and Chris Needles, I think, as well, from the original group, are the only ones still alive from the original group, and we're bound and determined to get this museum built. A lot of guys, as we see here on Museum Weekend, as Larry Bagley said, which is one of the greatest comments I've ever heard, last night at the relative work seminar, or I would say tribute to the SCR, Bagley said, you'll have noticed out on this airport, there's a lot of experience and a lot of history limping around this airport. And it does, and you see things like this, and it really gets you motivated before we lose all these people and before we all lose the great history of the sport. It was a wonderful time for me. It was probably the best 12 years of my life. And I love the sport dearly, and I'm thrilled to be able to be on the museum board, just to be able to keep a hand in it and see my old friends. Well, I would tell them that, you know, it really is a sport, but it's also a thing of an absolute beauty. And they always talk about the water and the air being, totally different elements, and they are different elements, and you got to be careful with both of them, but the enjoyment that both of them can give you is absolutely extraordinary. And it's just like the water. You can go, scuba diving, or you can just wear a snorkel, or just go splash around in the water. Or you can be a Michael Phelps and compete for medals and whatever else. In skydiving, just step out that door and just say, wow, look at what I'm doing, and look at the countryside, just by yourself. Roll over on your back and watch the sky go away, and just enjoy the absolute sensation and feeling of doing it. Or you can do individual competition with style and accuracy, or you can go join a team and do 4-way. You can do 8-way. You can do all of it. And if you're looking for something that is, as long as you understand that you're going up into an element that man wasn't meant to be in, and you're careful with your equipment, and you will have just absolutely a wonderful time. And in all sports, I am in an athletic hall of fame from my football, hockey, and baseball days. I've never met a greater group of people than I have in the world of skydiving. There's just a million pluses to it, and then you make of it what you want to make of it. It's it's almost like somebody saying, "Is that a good college or not?" Yeah. A lot of these colleges, you will get out of it what you put in it, and you'll get a good education. And the same thing is with skydiving. You'll get out of it what you put into it. But it does take a bit of an effort. It does take a bit of a commitment. But if you're looking for something exciting, fun, and to do with good people, skydiving's it.